Hello and welcome to this session today. I can see people are just joining, so we'll allow everyone a few moments to come into the webinar and welcome everybody who has joined already. I can see lots of people just connecting, and we'll allow a minute for that. I can see people still joining, so we will just give a few more seconds and then we will begin the session. There we go. I think most people have now joined. So hello and welcome to this ETOA Insight session. I'm delighted to be joined once again by Juan Gomez from our partners at ForwardKeys. So welcome to you, Juan. It's a pleasure to...
Good morning, Rachel.
Hello, it's a pleasure to have you back with us. Today, we're going to have a look at ForwardKeys' newly launched Most Popular Cities report, very much hot off the presses. It's got all the latest figures for summer 2023 for Europe. So very much looking forward to that in a moment, Juan. Just a little bit of housekeeping before I hand over. You will receive a copy of the Most Popular Cities report direct from ForwardKeys after the session, as well as a link to the recording of this webinar as well. Please do feel free to ask any questions via the Q&A facility, and we will try and cover as many of those as we can after Juan's presentation today. And so over to you, Juan.
Thank you very much, Rachel. And to introduce me is Juan Gomez, and I am Head of Market Intelligence at ForwardKeys, Knowledge Partners of ETOA. As always, it is a pleasure joining in these virtual meetings and sharing ForwardKeys' latest travel trends and data. As the world finally settles into the new normal post-COVID, the upcoming summer season is of pivotal importance. While travel volumes may have recovered from pre-pandemic, preferences have changed, perhaps permanently. New travel patterns emerged, remote work. Economic pressures, particularly in Europe, have impacted the frequency and the length of trips, and the increase in the awareness of environmental impact of air travel has also, or is changing consumer and operators' behavior. And meanwhile, newly popular destinations continue to emerge, which of course represent a challenge to established favorites. So in today's presentation, I will share with you the results of the report that Rachel was mentioning, our newly published Most Popular Cities report for this summer. But first, allow me a few words about ForwardKeys, what we do, and the kind of data we use. At ForwardKeys, we're able to track changes in the travel industry in near real time. ForwardKeys data pinpoints every step of the traveler journey. This starts with people planning their trips on meta search engines like Skyscanner, Kayak, Kiwi.com, you name it. And it continues with people booking a trip. Thanks to our collaboration with both airlines and key GDSs worldwide, including Travel Sky for the Chinese market, we're able to know who will people be flying, where and when. We know when they depart, what itinerary they take, how long they stay, etc. And we build additional layers of intelligence on top of these enormous data sets to fill in the gaps and enrich data. So with that, now that you're a bit more familiar with the data that we use, let's see what will be the most popular destinations this summer. In this report, as I was saying, we compile insights from our ForwardKeys flight search data and our ForwardKeys ticket data. Although the report focuses on global destinations, I will focus today on Europe. And in any case, as Rachel was also mentioning, you will receive a copy of the report after this webinar. Last summer 2022, traveler intent was mainly focused on Central America, Mexico, the Caribbean islands, and of course, Southern Europe destinations due to a combination of factors, including, on the one hand, restored connectivity, favorable travel requirements, and a preference for open air, sun and beach destinations over more crowded urban options. In this summer, in the summer of 2023, the picture has changed quite significantly, as many destinations, destinations in Asia Pacific regain a significant share of traveler interest, having finally lifted their own travel restrictions. Bangkok is now the top of the list of most popular destinations for travel intent this summer, overtaking Paris and London. And Bali, the Denpasar in Bali, has broken into the top 5, overtaking some of the most popular European destinations, including Barcelona, Lisbon, Istanbul, Madrid, and Athens. And just outside the top 10, there are impressive ranking gains for Singapore, Tokyo, and Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, just to name a few, none of which featured in last year's top 30. So anyway, aside from New York, which has seen a steady growth in popularity among travelers since the last summer, the rest of the top 30 is dominated by European destinations, which have stayed relatively stable in terms of consumer preference, albeit with some reshuffling, as I was saying, due to the Asia Pacific destinations moving up. And the global top 30 as a whole reflects both, from the one hand, the pent-up consumer demand for travel to this region, to the Asia Pacific, and the resilience of mainstream urban destinations. So overall, it's a more diverse picture than the one of last summer, a positive sign for the industry that COVID-19 recovery is now even, and however, of course, with a level global playing field, of course, consumer demand becomes more fragmented, and destinations need to stand out in order to maintain and grow the market share that they had pre-pandemic. So focusing only on European destinations below the global top 30, we see some usual suspects like Porto, Heraklion in Crete, Alicante, Ibiza, Faro, which all show the continued resilience, as I was saying, of sun and sea destinations. But it is really urban destinations, those that are showing the biggest improvements in the list. So with Milan, Dublin, Vienna, Munich, Budapest, Brussels, or Zurich all climbing a few positions versus the ranking last year. You've probably noticed that I didn't mention Tirana, the capital of Albania, on the previous slide, and that's because I want to focus on both Tirana and Funchal in this slide, which show the top ranking climbers amongst the most searched destinations for summer 2023. As I was mentioning, pent-up demand has seen Asia Pacific destinations soar ahead in popularity, as the global region, of course, has has been the last one to reopen, and of course, Asia Pacific destinations are dominating this list of top climbers. And we have there with Taipei or Hong Kong gaining over 100 places in this global ranking, while of course we see that, for example, China for them has a big impact. So what I wanted to mention here is how the variety of destination, from bustling megacities in the APAC region to countryside and coastal gateways, of course, reflects this pent-up demand and both interest for leisure, but also VFR, business, etc. So we also see there Las Vegas seeing an impressive growth in popularity versus summer last year, which might signal as well the combination of consumer confidence in attending high-density leisure activities, as well as major trade shows returning to full capacity. So mentioning there the MICE sector. And in Europe, of course, as I was saying, those hidden gems of Tirana and Funchal in Madeira, reflecting the growing desire among tourists to explore further of the beaten track destinations, so much so that they are managing to step into this list. So when looking at the most searched destination for long-haul travel this summer, focusing on the long travel side of things, we reveal a strong competition for European destinations, as I was slightly mentioning earlier. For long-haul travel intent, Again, major international hub cities like Bangkok, New York, and Bali retain the leading 3 positions in global travel searches for the summer, reflecting their continued importance as gateways into the APAC and North America. But the data shows more diversity, as I was mentioning, than for overall international travel searches. And of course, what we see there, like for example, Tokyo again, which has been a traditionally go-to destination for long-haul travel, dropped significantly during the pandemic years and now regains its status, climbing 17 places in the rank up to the 8th position, and then surpassing therefore other global hubs like San Francisco or Madrid in Spain. So despite travel limitations in recent years, it managed to remain top of the bucket list for most enthusiastic travelers, globetrotters, and yeah, but luckily we still see Paris there climbing a few places as well as London. When it comes to multi-destination European trips for long-haul markets, they have still not completely recovered versus 2019, but certain destination pairs are showing healthy growth even compared to pre-pandemic levels. What is most interesting here is by looking at these combinations and what city pairs are at the top growing multi-destination trips for long-haul travelers into Europe. We see that the UK's exit from the European Union, completed, as you know, in 2020, has not had a visible effect on London's status as major hub for multi-destination itineraries, as sort of like a gateway to Europe, likely due, of course, to the country's relatively easy entry rules for a high proportion of passport holders. So the city appears, as you can see in the map, in 3 of the 5 fastest growing destination pairs for this type of travel, with substantial numbers of international passengers combining a stop in London with one of the southern European capitals like Lisbon, Athens, or London. Focusing on these global markets, Canada and the US lead travel demand globally. Travel recovery by origin market is mixed, as you can see in the map, with varying paces of recovery evident in the different global sub-regions, as expressed by forward tickets for international travel in this summer. Canada and the United States once again showed the most impressive recovery rates, with forward tickets for summer already surpassing 2019 volumes, and the popularity, of course, of intra-regional destinations in the Caribbean is a major factor for this recovery, as well as domestic travel growth, up by 4% in both markets, and long-haul travel, which remains ahead of 2019 levels. So North American markets look set to maintain their position as the travel industry's powerhouse this summer. So keep a close eye on them, and the recovery this outbound air travel from EU countries source market, we still see that is approximately 11% points below 2019 levels, which is attributable, of course, to the current economic situation. Of course, the financial insecurity with the high inflation rates that has affected both regional trips and consumers are obviously reconfiguring their budgets and deciding what they can afford. So we also see we've highlighted there the outlook for the UK outbound international travel, which is relatively positive, maintaining more or less similar volumes to the summer last year. And in Latin America, again, international travel recovering steadily, driven mainly by interregional travel between its countries in the region. So yeah. A very mixed picture, but with the eyes focused on Canada and the US. And then looking specifically at these 2 markets as source markets, as the evolution during the past few years, we see how Southern Europe keeps attracting them, in many cases above pre-pandemic, even now that competition is going back to 2019 terms. So here in this graph, you see the evolution of demand for popular leisure destinations from these 2 markets. So of course, Caribbean destinations were among the most resilient globally during the pandemic for that influx of visitors from the US and to a lesser extent from Canada. But now that the rest of the world has reopened, we're seeing how the market shares the interest is kind of like going back to 2019 2019 levels. And then I wanted to focus as well and show you some of the impressive growth rates for the US market in Southern Europe, and covering, as you're seeing, astonishing double-digit growth for many, including Albania, Greece, Turkey, Portugal, and Croatia, with an overall increase in US tourists in Southern Europe of almost 30% versus pre-pandemic. So as someone was saying the other day, there might be one American in Paris, but certainly thousands in Southern Europe this summer. So to close on the US market, just to mention that premium cabin class as well is driving the performance, with tickets for trips to Southern Europe from the USA in premium cabin class 80% above the same moment in 2019. Moving on to Far East markets, in the most visited destinations report, we also uncovered how China's outbound travel recovery has outpaced Japan, as China and Japan announced the lifting of COVID-19 related travel restrictions, opening up outbound travel for their citizens. Destinations across Asia Pacific competed to attract this demographic, of course, in an effort to make the most of and of course fight those losses during the pandemic. So what we're seeing now here, we've seen loads of strategies from Asian markets, like, for example, Taiwan giving away vouchers to travel there, in the same way free flight tickets to Hong Kong. So they really are trying to attract tourists back. So but what we're seeing here, what we're showing here, is that the recovery of the Chinese tourism is still ongoing, of course, but is proceeding at a rapid pace, and we need to bear that in mind, because we need to start working on attracting and bringing back that market. So there is an apparent gap now, and we're seeing that they are reaching pretty much 0.5% of the volumes in 2019, and again focusing on the arrivals for this summer to some European destinations from China. What we see is that some of them will already reach that half of Chinese arrival levels from pre-pandemic, and such is the case of the Netherlands, of France, but also with Greece and the UK following closely. Before I finish with the Chinese market, I just wanted to mention as well and touch on some of this behavior, or this traveler profile changes. As I was mentioning, they've changed post-COVID and maybe forever. So when looking at the group sizes from China to Europe this summer, we see a clear shift in favor of FIT and independent travel, and that's of course pictured by the highest market share increases in single and couple travel, 10 percentage points and 4 percentage points each of them. So important to note, and whilst group is declining in its market share. Then I'd like to continue as well with the intra-European, or Europe as a source market, because again, for many of you, European travelers constitute the main source of arrivals and clients. So of course, being a key market, we need to understand as well the changes that are happening in this market. So as I was mentioning earlier, with the adverse economic climate in Europe, with high inflation resulting in less disposable income for consumers, with increasing prices, is making travel more expensive overall. We've seen how fares are increasing, accommodation is increasing. So the resilience of the leisure travel demand in Europe is in question. So whilst the pent-up demand from European markets has propped up growth in recent years, in the last couple of years, it remains to be seen how long this can be sustained in time. So the currently emerging trend in European outbound travel is that travelers choose longer single trips in place instead of multiple short breaks throughout the year. So short duration trips up to 3 nights in duration, so weekend getaways are less in demand, both in the first half of the year and in the summer this year, while medium trips show resilience for both inter-European trips and extra-European, so long-haul trips. So longer trips are performing better, with diversity, of course, of purposes, including of course, VFR and digital nomadism, but as well purely leisure. So this is something that we need to bear in mind as well. And last but not least, another highlight of our report is the analysis of the impact that events have in destinations, constituting a true catalyst for visitor loyalty to destinations. So as well as contributing to tourism revenue, events attract an international audience and are crucial for destinations looking to develop a loyal and returning visitor demographic. So summer music festivals are a good example, as you can see here, with events like Glastonbury and Primavera Sound in Barcelona boosting local economies thanks to local and increasingly international spending. And two events that regularly top the list of Europe's best events, showcasing here Tomorrowland in Belgium and Siget in Budapest, which are demonstrating the effect on international travel demand. So Tomorrowland taking place over 2 weekends, boosts traveler interest in Belgium before, between and after the key dates, while Budapest attracts longer stays with visitors to arriving to the event earlier to attend campus festival or the Guns and Roses concert in the preceding week. So industry stakeholders, as well as, of course, destinations, need to plan the development of destination brands around events, because they are important, like these ones, in order to attract interest from younger trending demographics and build lifelong connections and loyalty. So leveraging travel intelligence data is key here to gain a granular understanding of the impact of events, as well as the surrounding trends and travel patterns. So just to finalize with that, I would like to close introducing our newest module in Destination Gateway. For those of you who are not familiar with ForwardKeys' range of solution, Destination Gateway is ForwardKeys' latest innovation, built specifically for DMOs and tourism boards, as well as businesses. And it's a powerful and intuitive solution that provides destination clients with travel data at each step of the consumer journey in almost real time. So far, it included several modules, performance, to understand the performance of your destination regarding, for example, specific travel audiences, including historical trends, current patterns, and outlook. Demand, to understand, to chart the travel demand by using flight searches, ticket sales, etc., and recovery indexes. Connectivity, of course, to study what is your capacity and also help you to negotiate with airlines. And marketing, to understand your source markets, travel behavior and profiles, to optimally, of course, prepare your marketing plans and campaigns. But now we're bringing the events module to bring your marketing calendar and data together and drive and understand demand for travel to your events, being it MICE or cultural or major sport events. So to benchmark your market share during key holiday periods as well. So not necessarily events as we understand them, like a concert, etc., but also key holiday periods in your markets of interest, etc. So you can discover more on our website, and if you have any questions, you can drop a line in private to me or any of my colleagues attending the webinar as well, or you can just contact us afterwards. But there's plenty of information in our website. So with that, I will finish with some key takeaways before we give floor to you, and you can ask some questions. So first of all, tourist demand is broadening beyond sun and beach destinations, and is something that we will see this summer. And competition, as well as the search of new destinations, is key to understand the next few months. Secondly, take advantage of the strength of key markets whilst others remain in recovery. And I'm not only talking about specific origin markets, but also specific demographics like the premium market. And third and last, but not least, be mindful that taking smart database decisions for your destinations and businesses management has become more crucial than ever. So please rely on good quality data. As mentioned earlier, Rachel mentioned, and I've repeated a few times, you will receive the full report after this webinar. And now, Rachel, I believe we will have some time for questions, but please do not hesitate to contact and reach on LinkedIn if you have any further questions that we might not be able to answer in the last few minutes of this session today.
Thank you, Juan. Thank you so much. Another interesting chart-packed presentation from you. So lovely to hear all your thoughts. And really encouraging to see the return of urban tourism, because I know when last you presented, it was still a lot more about the outdoor locations. I think many of our audience will be really pleased to see the urban cultural angle back. So that's encouraging. As Juan said, do please feel free to type questions into the Q&A, and I can read those here and we can pick those up. Juan, something that I would like to ask, because it really struck me again as very relevant to our audience here, is the slide you showed about the multi-destination trips with the London Gateway. I think this is very interesting because many destinations are now looking at their strategies for growth, not just in terms of more visitors, but visitors staying longer and hopefully spending more. And I think that sort of supports their angle on sustainable growth, is this idea of people coming for longer. So you've got twice as many nights on just the same number of flights. I think that's quite interesting. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I think that's true, Rachel, and I agree with you. I think this analysis have, of course, many angles. One of of course, the analysis was performed on long-haul arrivals to Europe, and of course, connectivity plays a key role in this type of travel, because it's not always easy to reach your final destination in a continent like Europe if you're coming, for example, from the US, and London or Paris could be, or Amsterdam could be your easiest gateways to arrive to the continent, and then from then on move around and go to different destinations. So yes, there is lots of different sides of the story here. So as I was mentioning, first of all, mentioning that London still remains the main gateway for long-haul arrivals in Europe, especially when it comes to multi-destination trips. But again, this opens a wide variety of opportunities for destinations to, on the one hand, capture that interest and retain travelers in their destinations for as long as possible. And this is also linked to connectivity. So if they don't have the connectivity, of course, travelers will always have to reach the destinations through other neighboring European cities that are better connected, but also brings other questions into the table, like, for example, the topic of sustainability, and how, for example, the data that I was showing, of course, is always air travel data. We specialize in air travel data, but again, this also prompts destinations and industry stakeholders to try and find solutions to offer a more sustainable alternative for those trips, intra-European trips, multi-destination intra-European trips.
Yes, absolutely. I think there'll be a lot more on that in the coming months and years. Really, we've seen quite a few initiatives in various countries supporting the intra-European sustainable methods. So I'm sure there'll be a lot more. We'll probably have a separate webinar on that one. Juan, I also just wanted to cover something we've spoken about in various of our other webinars, is the real lag in the Japanese market. It's quite a conundrum, really. Obviously a major long haul market, and one of the things we've discussed with David Edwards, who is one of our tourism stats expert, is he has a model of the 3 M's, which is means, money and motivation are the 3 pillars that enable people to travel. And we've often spoken about motivation being usually the most resilient. We're very fortunate as a travel industry that people want to travel, and obviously means has been the massive one through the pandemic because they couldn't, and also money now with the economic factors and rising costs. But it does seem to be sort of specific to Japan now, the 3rd M, the motivation, and we've seen in sentiment polls from our partners over at the European Travel Commission, the Japanese just not wanting to come yet. And I wondered if you had any thoughts on, where they might be going. Are they going within Asia? I don't know. I know this is obviously a European presentation, but have you seen them traveling at least intra-regionally, or is it just they don't want to leave Japan?
It's a very interesting question, Rachel, and let me try to answer this. So, as I was mentioning at the beginning of the presentation, we've seen loads of changes and patterns being completely upside down during COVID, and now that we're leaving, the pandemic behind, we kind of like forget, and 3 years is a very long time. When it comes to to people and changing your mindset or your travel preferences here. So we don't have to go, and I'll go back to Japan in a second, but we don't have to go as far as Japan to look at a source market that hasn't recovered as we might have expected. We also have Germany in Europe, which is an outbound market that is key for many destinations, and again here, for example, in Spain, German arrivals are the life boat for many destinations, and quite sadly, it hasn't for those destinations. They are not recovering back to pre-pandemic arrival levels from Germany, and many argue that they may never recover back to pre-pandemic arrival levels, because, as I was saying, preferences change, and people see travel may see travel in a different way. So going back to Japan, we've seen some interesting recovery for intra-regional travel, and that's certainly something happening. But of course, but indeed, is happening at much slower pace than that, for example, of China. But again, it's a case-by-case scenario. I mean, in China, we have a astonishing growth in more, let's say, wealthy segments of the population. So of course, that part of the society is now very eager to travel, which with Japan, it could be a different thing. So we need to take market by market to really understand what is the behavior of the demand. And that's why I was showing the two cases of China and Japan, because they are key for many destinations in Europe. But again, Japan is going to be a lot harder to bring back than China. That's an obvious thing, and we'll have to, and I include myself. So destinations and industry stakeholders will have to work really hard to attract them back.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. Juan, I have also a question regarding your events piece, which you were showing us, obviously the impact of events, and clearly this webinar is about is a winter event just as good, as in people will be taking a holiday in the summer and they go, oh, there's an event here, let's go there for the summer holiday. Do you think a winter event can encourage people to make an extra trip that they wouldn't necessarily have made for a destination?
Yeah, so touching on our events module, and also on the way that I was showing the data. Of course, I focused on music events, but we understand an event, any sort of occasion. So be it a bank holiday or a half term, or an extended holiday period, like it can be summer, Easter, or Christmas. But again, other specific events, like it could be sporting events, like for example the Football World Cup in Qatar last year, or any other. I'm a true believer that events of any sorts can help destinations to position themselves outside of their, let's say, busiest seasons. And they are definitely, as I was saying, a catalyst for visitor loyalty, especially if it's a recurring event that you're celebrating in your city or your destination repeatedly over the years. But certainly any kind of event can help also to fight the seasonality. So it's key to understand what is the impact that current events are having in specific destinations that you might want to copy or mirror, or just study for your own sake. So that's what we're proposing with this new type of analysis.
Thank you. I've got a question here coming in through the Q&A. It's about airline capacity. Do we have any information about areas where this is still restricting growth, where they've got capacity issues?
By all means, we analyze capacity on a global level from continental down to terminal level. So we're very aware of this and very aware of the impact that limited capacity is having in the recovery of many destinations, and a factor that is obviously affecting the recovery of arrivals in Europe from the Asia Pacific is the impact of the war in Ukraine. So as you all know, the European airlines are banned from flying over Russia, which would normally be the quickest, the fastest route from Europe to APAC, and that means that airlines have to fly longer and therefore consume more fuel and prices, and that reflects in ticket prices, and that's of course putting a lot of pressure on recovery. And all of that on top of the fact that, of course, airlines have not yet reached back capacity, pre-pandemic capacity levels, at least in these routes. For example, if we look at Europe to South America or vice versa, we see how some destinations, like for example Colombia, is better connected with Europe, especially with Spain, than it was in 2019, and with the States as well. We see high increases in capacity, in their capacity with direct capacity with Europe. So certainly this is something that is having a dent in recovery.
Absolutely. Juan, this is a question, it's about the Baltic states from Laura. Obviously you may not have the specific information, but obviously we were looking at, say, that rise in popularity from Albania, for example, which is perhaps a bit of a surprise. Just wondered, do you remember roughly where any of the Baltic states are in terms of popularity?
Yes, so I don't think they appear in this report, but don't quote me on this because they might be. There's a very long list of 100 destinations, so I don't know them by heart. But we've done a few analysis on the Baltics in the last few months, and we've seen on the one hand how they were progressing massively in the positioning of the destinations, but on the other hand as well the impact of being so close to the conflict and so close to Russia. That was definitely having an impact in the traveler intent to these destinations. But I would happily look at this data and answer privately. So I'm not sure who made the question, but please feel free. Yeah, I know. Sorry, now I'm reading. Yeah, but the question was about the Baltics, not Albania. Sorry if I mentioned Albania. So yeah, please reach out to me, and I will be more than happy to answer specific questions about specific countries.
Thank you. Got a question here from Roman. It was about the slide on the Chinese traveller profile. Obviously, some of our audience will be concerned about the drop in the group size for China. And the question from Roman is, do we think it's permanent, this shift to wanting to go on your own, it looks even from the slide, but or as a couple? Is that going to be a long-term thing? I don't know if you would have any thoughts on that.
Well, we believe so. We believe so because we're seeing a change not only in their preferences, but it's a change in the society in China. We're seeing how the country is growing, how it's changing socially, and that of course is having a repercussion in their travel behavior.
So in a moment, I think we will close. So if there are any questions, do please type them in. I've got one more, which is very much forward-looking, because I don't believe these people will have yet made any bookings. It's from Eric about Generation Alpha, which is the one following Gen Z. So this is people born from 2010, so they're just becoming teenagers. I don't know if there's anything out there yet in terms of how they may be booking flights, thinking of the kind of digital side of things. Is that anything you've looked into at all, Juan?
No, we don't have a specific data into this, but I think some of the trends that we're seeing are a reflection of these generations coming into, into the question, and one of them being, the destination choice, but also all the things like length of stay, or all this digital nomadism that I was mentioning as well, how those long longer trips to some destinations, slow travel, etc., are definitely having an impact in the trends that we work with.
Well, absolutely. I mean, this is something that comes up in the forward-looking discussions on sustainability, will be the attitudes of the current teenagers, and how they will view travel and all the access they've got digitally. So I think that's an interesting discussion to come. Well, Juan, I don't think we have any more questions from the audience, so I would like to thank you very much for joining us once again. Just a reminder to everybody to have a look at our Insight Hub, etoa.org/insight. You can find lots of reports and stats on there. There's a separate channel on there for ForwardKeys information if you want to look specifically for ForwardKeys reports, but you can find a whole host of other insights on there. So do take a look. And Juan, thank you for joining us, and I hope that you will join us again soon.
It will be my pleasure, Rachel. Have a good day and rest of the week. See you soon.
Thank you for joining. Bye-bye.
Thank you.